Hey, I'm Melissa and I'm here with Maxim, and today I'm going to show you how to become infected and zombify you and your friends for this Halloween. So on a clean face, you're going to take liquid latex, which is also eyelash glue, and just apply it wherever you're going to lay your tissue for your torn skin. When you tear the toilet paper or the tissue, just avoid keeping the edges hard so that it'll blend better into the skin.
So this will be my festering wound.
Mm-hmm. You don't have to worry about gluing down the inner perimeter of the wound because that's where we're actually going to lift up the tissue to make it look like the skin is being torn. So now focusing on the inner perimeter of the wound, you're going to lay more tissue just to build up the area of the torn skin. So once you're finished laying all the tissue, you're going to just go in and set it. I would either use translucent or colorless makeup powder, or even baby powder works. So now after you set it with powder, you're going to actually match the skin with the foundation, and that's going to go on top of all the tissue to cover up all the white area.
So you're really just kind of blending it in to make it look a little more real?
Yes. And this is going to take a few layers just because the cream makeup is a little bit thin when you use it with a sponge. So if you need to do multiple layers, that's fine. Just really build up the color on top of the tissue. We're going to come back to the wound later, but for now I'm just going to set all that cream makeup with the powder. So now using another grafted bean wheel of color, this is actually the injury wheel. I'm going to use these colors to add texture to the skin. I'm using a deep purple, a red, and yellow. I'm going to tear up my latex sponge so that when you apply the makeup, it won't go on so solid. This will give it a more organic and uneven texture as opposed to using the flat edge of your sponge. So once you do that, I'm just going to go in to each color and just go over the entire face. And the color doesn't have to go on even, it could be sporadic. So I'm going to go in with the red. With that same sponge, doesn't have to be a clean sponge. And the deep red like this is really good because it'll actually act as like a bruising color. So if you want to add that on top and saturate it in more areas than others, that's really good. We're going to set all that cream color with the baby powder. Lightly powder on top of all that. So now using the same foundation that we were using earlier on top of the tissue, you're going to apply that all over the face on top of the cream colors you just laid down, just so that it can give the effect that the colors are coming through the skin as opposed to being on top of the skin. So I'm taking an ashy purple to hollow out her cheekbones. So I'm going to start underneath her eyes. I'm basically going to give the illusion that she has bags, that she hasn't slept, that she's undead. I'm almost following the natural shape of her eye. I'm really focusing on the inner corners of her eyes just so they look sunken in. When you're doing the shading for the shadows, just make sure that you're blending everything well so there's no hard lines of color. So now I'm going to go in with a matte black eyeshadow and just kind of focus more on areas that I want to look even deeper, sunken in. And just very lightly add black. You want to be careful with the black. It can become very overpowering if you use too much. So always start with a little bit. You can always add more. Just going to add some more depth. Using a small rounded brush, I'm just going to go into the red very lightly. The red's going to make it like she's very tired. It's going to make her eyes look irritated right along the lash line. Going back into my character palette of the cream colors, I'm taking this vibrant red. Now we're going to go into the inner part of the wound. I'm going to take the bright red, I'm going to take this burgundy color, and a very little bit of black. Again, black is very overpowering, so you want to be careful with how much of it you're going to use. You're just going to take the red, you're going to basically just paint the entire inside with the bright red. And as you're going, I'm going to use the back of the brush. This is where I'm just going to kind of start to lift the tissue. And again, this is up to you. This is where your creativity comes in. I like to make little pockets almost, because that's where the blood's going to sit. I'm using the back of my brush because it's dull, and I know it won't poke her. You're just going to paint the rest of that the red. Alright, so once that red is on, with the same brush, I'm going to go into this darker burgundy brown color. Now I'm just going to focus more on the outer part of the wound. It's going to make it look like it's really deep, torn deep. I'm going to go into the black, very little bit on the brush again. And that's going to also go on the outer perimeter of the wound. So now we're going to use some blood. I'm just gonna use the brush and just tap the insides. Using a toner part sponge again, take a little bit more blood and just dab it all around. This is thick blood. This is by bitten. You can also get this at any costume shop or party supply store. Basically like a jam. It's a lot thicker. I'm just kind of wedge that into where the skin is folding over. This is good for old blood, blood that's been sitting on the skin, that's been drying up. And with one of the old sponges you used earlier, with all those texture colors, I'm gonna go in and kind of bring the color in towards her lips. Around the corners, almost like she's been eating.
People.
Bring it down onto the chin. Again, that's totally up to you, wherever you want it. The other side too. All right, and there you have it. You have your first zombie. So again, you're using tissue or toilet paper for the wound, laying it down with eyelash glue, and you can again tear it or make whatever shape you want, putting it wherever you want, and then just some colors to make the skin look infected and some fake blood, and you're all finished.
Got a flesh-eating zombie. Thank you,
Yes.
Alyssa.
Thank you.